Political struggle. We in the British Democrats fighting with political intelligence for the three essentials: the ethno-cultural preservation of our peoples, Anglo-Celtic, Saxon Europeans, natives of these North Sea islands, the freedom that comes with national sovereignty, independent British power, an economy that is not the master, but one that serves society through honest economics, state control of credit, widely distributed private property, but also public housing to provide homes for all members of our national community, relatively secure incomes through a policy of autarky, and ultimately truly self-reliant, self-sufficient nationalist economics. Opposing us in all of this is our desire for a sovereign homogenous nation with a European standard of living, are the forces of globalisation. In the old days we used to call them internationalists. The majority of the political class at Westminster, mainstream media, big business, etc., money power, are all part of this. And since the end of the Great War in 1918, they have been pushing at accelerating speed for the nations of the West to become part of a fully integrated, dependent, multinational structure and system. The EU, United Nations, NATO, they're all part of this. But also promoting a deliberate policy of turning those nations into unstable, multicultural entities, including socio-economics of lower living standards and chronic chaos in housing and jobs markets. Globalism itself is made up of certain characters. I'm talking about the individuals involved in it. There is a nucleus of psychopaths who are obsessed with obtaining power over the whole planet. There's always people like that. Plutocrats with never-ending material gain as their objective. Mercenaries and prostitutes, plenty of them, of course. And unfortunately, the disease of self-hating liberalism, unfortunately endemic in the West and especially in Britain. Globalism's ultimate aim is world government. And needless to say, with current technology, it will be the ultimate tyranny. There'll be no escape from it. It would be darkness and it would descend on the globe forever. The political system also has a small legion of political functionaries working 24/7 to implement policies to wreck the nation, our nation. One good example is Gus O'Donnell, a senior civil servant. He used to be a cabinet secretary, a top civil servant. Cabinet secretary is effectively the top civil servant who speaks to the Prime Minister and the cabinet. He's probably the most important civil servant of all. He served PMs between 2005 and 2011. In some respects, you could describe him as a well-meaning liberal, but he's clearly globally orientated and easily manipulated by ruthless promoters of one world government. On the subject of immigration, what he said once was, and these are his actual words, you can look them up, "When I was at the Treasury, I argued for the most open-door policy to maximise global welfare. I think it is my duty to maximise global welfare, not national welfare." Think about that. He's not interested in the wealth of individual Britons or families or any aspects of our society. He's talking about global welfare. A utopian liberal, no roots in the nation, no feelings for us. Apparently we still need immigration for the economy, but it's laughable. Our people, when you consider our achievements over the years, the Industrial Revolution, the innovations, we invented the tank and the hovercraft and the internet and God knows what else. There's cultural aspects as well, alongside science and technology, and also social legislation to make life better for ordinary working people. We still have technically 1.3 million unemployed. That's able-bodied men and women who haven't got a job. Yet we have Farage going, we need immigration. Some of Farage's associates saying we want the best of the immigrants. But all they're doing is stealing the best workers from some of the poorest countries who probably really need them anyway. And even if immigration did raise GDP a few points, would it be worth the eventual destruction of our unique and superlative ethno-cultural brilliance of the British people? No, never. Never at all. No need for immigration for a declining birth rate. It's declining possibly because at a subconscious psychological level, a lot of people, even though they may not admit it, won't want to bring children into this horrible world, this unnatural world. It's an invisible form of national depression. A Britain that ended immigration and commenced phased humane repatriation in various forms, spanning decades if necessary, would increase our native population. It can and will be done. It is a question of political will. Even the old Soviet state of East Germany in the 80s managed to increase their population by various state measures. We need a policy of protectionism, not only for our agriculture and industry, but also for our declining people, a form of ethnic protectionism. It is a guarantee of our future security. One of the things that is often brought up is about pensions. How are you going to pay for the pensions in the future? So in other words, you need mass immigration from the third world to pay for your pensions, but in return you'll just get more mass immigration. We have the political will, the logic and the intelligence to work out a pension system that's adequate for our people. And political nationalism, economic nationalism, will be the guarantors of that. And also to bear in mind about pensions, there is a thing called automation. You have robots, you have AI, you have sophisticated forms of computer systems that can do all manner of work for us. On the whole, a population is healthier in many respects. You can be 60, 65, 70 and still carry on working, which many people may wish to do. There is the question of unemployment. And also putting aside economics, putting aside money, just completely binning it and just ignoring it for a moment, our opposition to immigration and to multiculturalism and all that goes with it is not just a question of, can I get a doctor's appointment? Is it a job? Is it a house? It's also about the essence of what we are as a people, our culture, our identity, that literally goes back thousands of years. Yourself as an individual, your family, community, friends, society, national society. So it's not just about the money side of things, it's not just about the material side of things, it's also about the identity of what we are, and we want it to carry on into the future. Politics of a seemingly chaotic world has a brute logic behind it, the brute logic of globalist planning to divide national societies. Once you realise what their game is, what their plan is, such as Starmer's speech the other day, you get the whole picture, it all falls into place. In a way, their sort of old-style communism has been replaced by universalism. All governments must be global or under a global system, societies multicultural, economics debt-based, financed and laissez-faire economics. This, we are told, is the only mode of existence. A global non-racial state, a universal human equality is a rigid principle, money power supreme. And also, with any political endeavours involved in these days, there is never any debate. Diversity doesn't include diversity of opinion, or certainly not to people like us. We are the alternative, nationalism as opposed to global tyranny, preservation of our incredible people, making sure they're not dissolved into ethnic pluralism. And also the protection of British industry and agriculture, providing jobs and food for our national communities. We have a great opportunity in the British Democrats because an open goal has been presented to us. That open goal is by old Labour, not interested in ordinary people anymore, and the Conservatives haven't shed any sort of vestiges of patriotism. They're both political dead ends. It's an open goal. It's a good opportunity for us. Our political work, small soft victories in election campaigns, even at parish level, are important. They send out a message. And also we need to dominate social media, as we were discussing earlier. We need to promote a cultural revolution. We need to create political routes in selected areas, even like 5 or 6 areas where we can work away, send out the message and show people practically what we can do, what we're capable of. Some of the things we're looking at next year are building a complete party manifesto, but with an emphasis on the local government one, a newsletter that we can distribute on the doors on a regular basis, building up the political infrastructure of the party with decades in mind, not just in thinking in terms of minutes or weeks, and the usual functions of a serious political party, professional party organisation. There's so many aspects that we can do to take advantage. As Thomas More, Chancellor of England, once said, England is a forest of laws. We can use these to help our beleaguered peoples in various ways, with housing, education, social services, antisocial behaviour in your local community, council tax. There are different ways we can get involved and help people. And when our teams are canvassing next year, we won't just be asking for votes. We'll be also saying what we can actually practically do for you. If you want to join us, fine. But if not, you're our people, you're part of our national community, we'll still help you. Essentially, we're implementing some of our policies. So that creates optimism and inspiration for ordinary Britons. And what we're doing is building a movement of national resurgence. It's often dispiriting when you see propaganda on television, particularly with advertising, and you feel overwhelmed by it or dispirited by it. But please, don't be too bothered about it. I used to work with a Russian gentleman who lived in the old USSR, and that state was literally built on propaganda. He said, in the end, we didn't go to the pub or the cinema, theatre, any sort of social activity in public. We used to stay indoors and drink and just play old folk songs, anything to escape the sort of zeitgeist of that times, because you was told about propaganda or about how wonderful and uplifting the paradise of Soviet communism was every day. And he said, in the end, it didn't work. You didn't believe in it. You knew it was all falsehood. You knew it was all lies. And it's the same with us now, when you see those things going on. So we should never, ever be spiritualised or demoralised by that. And you can think of a poorer people like the Vietnamese, small little country in Southeast Asia, been invaded by China and by America, obviously, and the French, wars with India, etc., Japanese occupation. But they have a funny little saying in Vietnam, not mathematically correct, but it's very good. It says 9 times down, 10 times up, which means no matter what happens, we never give in, we never surrender. And that should be, to some extent, our ethos in these desperate times. No talk for defeatism, and anyway, talking victory promotes victory. As emphasised numerous times, radical nationalists will win by political action. But apart from that physical world, there is also the struggle of ideas and values. The political perversions of global multiculturalism, global economics, are ideas that have brought the West to near destruction. But certain forces and certain people have promoted these ideas fanatically, which is why, unfortunately, those ideas have succeeded, because our opponents have been dedicated to them. The civil servant Gus O'Donnell I mentioned earlier as an example, along with politicians and mainstream media. Being against their ideas is not enough. We have to know what we're for and why we're against them, what values we're for. Obviously, intelligent nationalism, economic protection, guarantors of our freedom and security, and the ethno-cultural integrity based on sociobiology gives us nature's natural order. We must always advance the positives of nationalism, because one day we and our descendants will have to build a new system on the rubble and the ruins of the old, and not just for basic survival, but also for the necessary process of repairing a severely wounded Britain. And with imagination and creativity, we can again create a greater Britain that will eclipse even the fantastic past achievements of our island nation's history. Thank you.
And another one who is an absolute credit to not just the British Democrats, but the British Nationalist cause, Steve Smith. What a man.